All right, let's begin. So welcome back to the Edge Group podcast, the podcast that we really don't have to do, but we just don't have anything else to do on Sundays. And we have to drag other people into our madness. So here we are, episode four with the legendary Eric Bostrom.
Hey, crew. Thanks,
welcome,
Eric.
Eric.
Great to be with old friends and new here. Nabil, obviously, we go way back, and Gal, it's a pleasure to meet you. It's cool to join you on Sunday morning. You guys offered to buy me coffee, and I probably should have taken you up on it, but let's do the best we can.
Okay, offer still stands. So let me just give a little preview to everyone. So you are 15 times MA Superbike race winner, right? MA Harley Davidson 883 dirt track champion 1996, MA Super Twins Series champion 1997 when you won 10 out of 11 races, MA Formula Extreme champion 1998, MA Superbike champion 2001, 2004 Daytona 200 lap record 146.83.
Oh yeah. Well, these are all just the accolades, but they don't make you who you are, right?
Yeah, and then recently you started helping out Brahma with e-racing, and you immediately won the World Cup, right?
Yeah, we had a good bike, and actually I just saw Craig Bramshire 2 days ago, which is cool that we're still pals. Craig started Brahma, and then he's kind of helped me with Backmate, which is the final thing there, which has been a project to help people elongate their quality of life, and certainly as far as motorcyclists go, elongate their period on, their time on a motorcycle and their time of enjoyment, rather than being suffering from back pain, neck pain, all the things that are kind of wrapped around with that. So improving your lifespan.
It's kind of funny, we're sitting right next to each other because there's only one camera, right? And you can see the questions that I'm going to ask you.
No.
I can just go have
Maybe
some
you should
water.
just point to the question he wants to answer now, and this way you get to select.
I'm the first person that's ever sat next to you.
Yeah.
That's great.
First guy. So, so tell us more about Backmate, how the idea got born, and when did you decide that you're going to do something about what happened to you? How did you go about starting a business? How did you go about making a business out of it? Tell us a little bit about the challenges. Obviously, the basis of every business is making money. How you go about marketing. Just bring us inside your mind as a business guy.
Yeah, it's a great question, man. You're hitting me hard right from the beginning. I thought there was going to be like
we'll get
a parade lap.
I know. I thought
We'll
there'd be
get-
a question about, how do you get to be fast, and we can all take notes, but straight into business.
We'll
get to motorcycles a little later.
Talk about edge grip, not traction. Jesus. All right, so the Backmate thing really came out of a crash at the Gonseca World Superbike in 2003, where I had fractured the vertebrae in my neck and compressed the vertebrae as well, C5 and C6, and then had a bunch of other injuries too, but all the other injuries were normal. They're the kind you heal from, right? Broken bones, torn ligaments, that kind of stuff. And the back thing was completely different. I had never experienced an injury that I couldn't really come back from, and ultimately ended up shortening my career because I just wasn't comfortable on a motorcycle, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'd been through, the gamut of, doctors' offices, then, in and out of therapy and various types of therapy, from chiropractic to massage to PT, and I had some success there, but it wasn't something that I could do consistently and create repetition with. And ultimately, as I kind of jumped into this rabbit hole, I learned that it took repetition, and it didn't take a ton of time, but it took repetition. So I started to try to build a better mousetrap because there was nothing out there that did what I needed to do. And certainly, when you're in spasm. You can't lay on the floor and do it and get into crazy positions. So I need something that I could do for my feet that was easy to kind of relax the nervous system and get the body back onto a healthy path. So that's where the Backmate came in. It was so obvious for me to go, okay, we need to do this standing, and it's got to be something that's like, it's like a human hand, but it has the ability to go, deep, and also whenever you need it. And that the Backmate's that. I mean, you can create the amount of pressure you want, which is really unique. Gravity takes over, right? So you can adjust, how much you want to lean into this thing, and then that it's funny because you look at the science, and I'll try not to go too far here, but there's always the naysayers of like, you can't break up muscle fascia and all these different things. And although that may be true, the chemicals in your body most certainly can. So if you have naysayers saying, that these things aren't working, well, massage therapy has been around for thousands of years for good reason. Right. It's super strong practice. And so with the Backmate, the biggest thing that I think we're learning out of all this as it, science continues to unfold, is to get the nervous system to relax. And once you go from, a sympathetic state, which is kind of fight or flight, and that's what your overreactive brain does when it senses an injury, back into a parasympathetic state, the body's able to actually relax. And when that happens, when the brain finally goes, okay, there's not too big of a problem here, then the muscles will actually relax, and you get circulation. You have the waste being removed from the from the cells, and then nutrients being brought in, and the body can actually heal. And that's really the point of doing physical therapy, massage therapy, chiropractic, like a lot of these techniques that we have. And the Backmate just gives you the ability to do that every day, right? And several times a day if you need it. And the most fascinating thing is that the biggest results come within 2 minutes. So it doesn't take much commitment to really change your life around. And for me, it's really restored my quality of life. It's been able to put me on, whether it's a motorcycle doing track days, or a bicycle doing an 8-hour race or a 10-hour race, and I can do it comfortably. Whereas before, I could barely squeak through a 40-45 minute superbike race, and that ultimately shortened my career, which was sad, but true.
I thought when you wanted to say I could barely win, because you still managed to win.
Yeah.
So how do you go about making a business out of it? I mean, everybody has ideas, right? It's about the execution. So how do you go about sitting home going like, you know what, I can design this, I can patent it, I can sell it, I can help other people, and I can make some money out of it? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a great question, one that I haven't figured out. So if you have any insights, let me know. It really has been a passion project to help people. And the price point is low enough where I think it's kind of a no-brainer, but that doesn't mean that you get people automatically out there going, okay, I see the value in this. So there's the side of, I feel really happy that we've been able to help out thousands of people. But then there's the other side where it's like, we haven't figured out how to make this business work yet. There's some cool tools out there, like Kickstarter was a great example of, have this idea and how much traction it's going to get. So a platform like that certainly costs money to jump in on, but it's also proof of concept, right? And once we got over 1,000 people to do pre-sale on the Backmate, then it became pretty viable. So I think that's sort of like when it's like, okay, this is real, we can actually do this and afford to do it. But getting that next step, and they always talk about that in Shark Tank, right? It's like, okay, big deal. You made a bunch of, like you sold a bunch of units in Kickstarter. No one really makes money in Kickstarter. I don't think that happens anymore. I think it may have happened when the platform was early, but nowadays it's like Kickstarter, if you can even break even, like you're stoked. Ultimately, it ends up costing people money. I mean, most people, and I would say 99%. And so then it's it's trying to figure out how to generate real sales, and the sharks are certainly right about that. I mean, it's completely different world to try to get advertising on the, on different platforms, and try to get a place where you can actually get return on investment for advertising, because it's so easy to dump money and then it's gone. And
Tell me about it.
yeah,
Google AdWords, man.
oh man, right? Yeah, and
You can lose $100,000 in a week.
yeah, and Instagram and Facebook, and there's all, and Pinterest, and there's all these different ways to do it, but it doesn't mean it's easy. So yeah, we have I can happily say that we've helped thousands of people, but as far as business goes, we have not found our feet yet.
You have plan to talk to insurance companies, going through doctors?
Yeah, I've done some of that. It's a hard road. It's certainly worthwhile, but we're most of the time it's easiest to generate sales. I should, in that take that with a grain of salt, but easiest in traditional sales channels, and the insurance company route takes a lot more time and oftentimes a lot more investment too.
Okay, so you have inbound marketing and outbound marketing, right? So you're looking into both basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so all I can ask is anybody that's listening, please jump on mybackmate.com if you have any sort of shoulder pain, let's say shoulder tension, neck tension, back tension, anything, let's say any sort of issues that are coming back again and again. Let's say a sore muscle that's bothering you, and just download the book that I wrote. It's just an easy, quick read on some methods to really heal the body, and it's right there on the site. So just grab the book, download it, and it'll take you through a journey. It'll take you a little bit through my journey, and I think it's a really powerful book.
So
Good.
back
And-
to
and-
mention, that's pretty much everybody sitting on a desk or at a computer today. Really,
Oh, yeah.
not just motorcycle racers, right? It's a massive market.
Yeah, I know. I could have used it when I injured my back. I had a lower back injury. I still do in jiu-jitsu about 12 years ago, where I was a little too rough on an arm bar, and everything felt fine. Then I went home, put my head on the wall, watched some TV, and then 2 hours later I couldn't get up. Right, and I was out for 6 months.
Wow.
And it took a lot of yoga, and it took a lot of exercises and gravity boots. My buddy hung me backwards, upside down at the gym on the Smith machine, and then twisted me. And it took a lot of sessions like that for me to actually just walk right. And it still bothers me once in a while when I do something that's, at the gym or in jiu-jitsu, it still bothers me, and I'm out for a month, right?
Yeah, and
So-
the nervous system has an amazing memory, but it's something that you need to continue to stay ahead of, and that is the name of the book that I wrote is Ahead of Back Pain, and it is truly that. I mean, that's the idea, which is you can either, it's kind of like riding a motorcycle, right? You can be behind the motorcycle and reactive, or you can be in charge and you can be ahead of it. And if we want to ride a motorcycle ahead of what's next, and as far as back pain goes, it's probably even more important.
Yeah.
And that implement can reach places. I mean, I sit at a desk a lot, and I have old injuries too, but the biggest pain is really neck and shoulders. And the way this is designed, I have it permanently attached to one of our doors here. And it's just the greatest thing, because you can walk by and give yourself like a quick 30-second rub, and all of a sudden you got a couple of tension point that's released, and you feel a lot better in a very simple way. I mean, this thing is so simple, but so well designed that it reaches places. Like I do yoga, or started doing yoga. It's not the same thing. You can't fix that with yoga, unfortunately.
Yeah, you really do need to. I mean, and yoga is such a great practice, and the breath work, all these important parts of that of the yoga practice really do help bring the body back into a parasympathetic state, where you can get the body into a healing state, as opposed to kind of prolonged injury state. So but to be able to actually have that communication with the brain to say, kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi of there's nothing to see here. That's essentially what you're doing with the Backmate. You're able to get the brain to stop being overreactive towards injury that it perceives.
Right. Great. So you're huge on homeopathic and, eating right. And, your whole Backmate philosophy inscribe itself in your life philosophy of eating correctly and exercising and just prolonging your quality of life and your performance level. Talk to us a little bit about, that philosophy and what you do and what you advise people to do without, we don't need to give them the entire recipe, but we wish we had enough time for that.
Thanks, Nabil. Yeah, we'll keep it short there. I mean, my motivation is obviously I want to be able to, perform at my best throughout my entire life, right? Because there, I guess, is lifespan, and then there's a health span, and there's a bunch of different ways to refer to this. But ultimately, we want to be our best as long as we can. And when we look into food sources, whether it's Roundup ready products such as the standard staple wheat and rye and everything that is typically grown in America to soy and corn, you have a ton of fungicides and herbicides, pesticides in the food, and what these things are not supposed to harm humans, but they certainly harm our gut flora, and with that ends up creating big problems in the large intestine, with which is responsible for a lot of autoimmune disease, Alzheimer's, and then a lot of other diseases such as Alzheimer's later on life disease. So and it's a really simple, it's that old KISS, keep it simple, stupid sort of thing, where we need to eat a lot of greens. I don't eat meat, but I'm not against it, certainly. I mean, for me, it's more of a spiritual thing with the animals, and I just want to be a part of the process. I say, if I kill it, I'll eat it, sort of thing. But I do think that you want to limit your exposure to meats, mostly because of what it does. How it, if you eat a lot of meat, it there's too many omega-6s and especially in conventionally grown meat, whereas if you have beef that's pasture raised, it's much higher in omega-3 and much more balanced profile, and of course omega-6 is highly inflammatory, so we want to stay away from conventionally grown meats, which is interesting, because we want to stay away from those conventionally grown vegetables, right, and grains that would be Roundup ready products and whatnot. So so it's sort of, although organic is certainly not perfect because the farm practices here in the US are pretty backwards, it's probably the best thing we can do, and of course we want to try to help grow that industry. The prices are coming down on organic, and then we want to stay away from processed foods, and it's really just that simple. And then staying away from processed foods, you're really giving your gut flora a chance to hopefully rebuild and thrive. Obviously, we want to stay away from antibiotics and things like that end up hurting the gut. And I think one of the great quotes that I'd heard is that our gut flora today, as opposed to what it would have been like 100 years ago, it would have looked like a rainforest, tropic rainforest, and today it looks like the Sahara Desert. It's just that is why right now our mortality rate in America for the last 20 years has been shortening, right? And so we're seeing people die earlier and earlier, and we're going to continue to see that. And it's really a shame, because here we live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and should have the best health in the world. Instead, we have some of the worst health in the world. And it really comes down to our grocery stores and too much fuel. Another great analogy, if you want to hang on to it, is that food is very much like putting fuel in a tank. And you have a 4-gallon tank on your race motorcycle. You can put in 2 gallons or 3 gallons. The bike's going to run great. You can put in 4 gallons. Bike's still going to run great. The moment you put in 4.5 or 5 gallons, you create a toxic spill, right? And now you have gas all over the paddock, and everyone's breathing it. And that is essentially what happens when we put too much fuel in the body. And carbohydrates are the easiest way to put too much fuel in the body. they're also the ones that typically are the most polluted in the sense of like fungicides and whatnot. So so it just all comes back to, you know, keeping it simple. And a great, I guess, to continue that analogy, once you have that toxic spill, that's where you start having insulin resistance, and then from there, I mean, whether it's cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, like the biggest killers in America, they all come from that toxic spill. So the easy way is don't eat too much. Don't eat if you're not hungry. Stay away from carbs, and especially stay away from carbs after 2 p.m. if you're trying to lose weight. And then so you know, you kind of preload your fuels if you're a carb eater. I try not to be. I try to go very heavy on a fat diet.
Are you in ketosis right now?
No, I'm not anything too extreme like that. It's just that I like to keep the body burning healthy sources of fuel, and training it to burn those healthy sources such as fat, because it does take a little training. And then really trying to limit how much fuel I have, especially as I get later on in the day, because that's when those fuel sources don't get burned, and then they end up going into you know, the visceral fat and some really tough stuff for your body to get rid of.
Yeah, and then getting rid of fat is a story by itself, right? Because there's toxins in there, and once you start losing the fat, you're gonna feel bad because all those toxins are back in your body.
Absolutely, and you really become a zombie, but you're also really putting yourself at risk for cancer and some of these things, because the fat cells become kind of zombie cells, and they don't die, and then those are the ones most likely to replicate into cancers. So if we can just keep our body at a balance, and at a healthy balance, then, you know, we're really insulating ourselves from disease. And you know, the idea that, you know, medicine will save us from all these diseases is so flawed. We're the one that will save us from disease. It's not 100%, but there's no guarantee.
Yeah, who said let thy food be the medicine?
It was Hippocrates.
Yeah.
There you go.
Lest your medicine becomes your food.
Yeah, and it's so valuable. There's so many valuable things from these philosophers from, you know, 4 or 5 that. Yeah, that was about 3,500.
Then you're all the way to the 20. Who's that German doctor that wrote the book The Mucusless Diet?
Ooh, I don't know.
It's
Sounds like a
about,
good one.
yeah, so it's about fasting, long-term fasting, and the fact that you need 2 meals a day. One is fruit-based, the other is vegetable-based.
Interesting.
Clean out, and he said that every disease in the body is simply mucus, right?
Okay.
So if you're going to do the mucusless diet, you're going to see mucus just coming out of your body, and I saw it when I did it. So
Very cool.
yeah, and then you just instantly feel better.
Yeah, fasting is so powerful, and I think that's why it's been around for centuries, well, millennia. And you know, and fasting is not hard to do. You know, the most common and easiest one to do is the 16-8, where you don't eat for 16 hours, and then you eat all your food within an 8-hour period. Super easy to do.
I'm doing it right now.
Feels great.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Good feel.
So in anticipation for my new bike, the bill, I was like, yeah, I really need to lose the COVID weight. So I weighed myself, and I was 214, and that kind of scared me. So I'm going back to 180. And it's been a week now, and I lost 7 pounds. So I'm on track. It's too quick to lose, but I'm going to slow it down a little bit by just piling on a little bit more calories. And it's mostly plant-based, right? Now, no carbs, plant-based. I try to be in ketosis, but ketosis is not good to be on for a long time. So you have to cycle it. You have to cycle in and out of it.
Right.
So maximum of 3 weeks on it, and then have some sweet potatoes and get out of it, and then go back on it. But it's really an exercise in put fuel in and look at your body change, right? And the good thing is that every 7 years, I think, we're completely brand new, because our cells die and they regenerate, and it takes 7 years to regenerate your entire body. So if you start eating right now, in 7 years, you'll be perfect, right?
Yeah, and some of the tissues that take the longest to replace, of course, are in your brain and whatnot. But most of our cells replace themselves within a matter of days. So it's when people say I have an injury and I'm not healing from it, they're not giving their body the right opportunity to heal, and that's just simple, right? It's not to say it's perfect, but there are some things that maybe we're not going to heal from. But if you are not giving your body the best opportunity to heal, then you're certainly not going to heal. And that's where the food source is everything. And for any listeners that want to lose weight, like, eat more vegetables. It's just that easy. You're not going to gain weight if you're eating vegetables.
Yeah, leafy greens,
Yeah.
cauliflower.
All the good stuff.
Any thoughts on supplements, probiotics? Like them, don't like them? Prefer to do it natural way?
I prefer to eat naturally, but I'm also, of course, a fan of supplements. It's difficult to have a big enough education for most people out there, and myself included, to really understand what to take. I mean, you can say right off the top, like, most Americans are deficient in vitamin D, and with that you need D3, K2, and then like magnesium and zinc, and those are just some, like, that's a really inexpensive supplement that most people are deficient on. And but then you can go all the way into, of course, probiotics, which can be, and prebiotics, which can be more expensive, and those are really important. Of course, I do believe they're best to be consumed in your food sources, whether it's those leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables.
You take trace minerals?
I do, especially if I'm working out a lot, and in the summertime when I'm sweating a lot. So,
Yeah.
and I notice huge benefit with those, and they're inexpensive again, so it's pretty cool. There's a brand out of Salt Lake called Trace Mineral, which is I think their product is Electro Stamina, and it's got some great stuff in there, like taurine, which is great for healing, and then the whole kind of mineral complex, and those ones, they're just, it's a local company, it's good product, and if you're, and it's not like you can take too much, right? If you take too much, you're going to end up getting a headache. Back it off a little bit. But if you're not taking these mineral supplements, and you're thinking, I'm going to drink Gatorade, well, that's a big problem, because Gatorade has so much sugar in it. It's actually going to remove the water, the H2O from the cell, so that it can you can process the sugar in your stomach.
And it is processed food at the end.
It is, right. So you're much better doing it through a mineral tab, and then you're actually going to be able to pass, because it takes minerals to pass water through the cell wall. So you can't just drink water if you're on a really hot day on a workout, and you definitely can't just drink Gatorade. Gatorade's actually going to dehydrate you in that scenario. I mean, or I should say I shouldn't say Gatorade, but I should say most drinks have too much sugar to effectively hydrate you.
Sodium too, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, sodium's okay because you're sweating it.
Yeah, sodium's, it's a good mineral to have, but it's better to have, a complex mineral, which will have like magnesium, calcium.
Yeah. So that bridging a little bit to our favorite topic here, and I know also your wife Janelle has a cycling school. You're an avid cycler. I think a lot of people that do track days and race wonder about what to eat, maybe the night before, the week before, during. What advice do you have for them? Or big performance, like, your cycling bouts of 16,000 hours and 5 million miles back to the moon and back.
It's important. I love that. It's important to know that all of our systems are different, and so we can get away with different things. And also, I think age has a big fact. It ends up being very important.
Tell me about it.
Kid, you can get away with murder, right?
Yeah.
And as we age, it starts getting narrower and narrower, and I think our bodies have a tougher and tougher time with carbohydrates. So, but that being said, I think right now we're seeing I remember, when I started watching the Tour de France, the youngest winner, I think it may have been like Le Mans or somebody like that. Now we're seeing, I mean, we're seeing children win this race, like basically, right? Like you have 21-year-olds winning the Tour de France. That never happened before. And I think it's because there is so much more information coming about with decent fuel sources in food. And so, it's making a big difference for the kids too. What I notice is clarity wise, eating, let's say a pasta dinner before a race, which was the traditional, like I'm gonna carb load before a race, made me pretty foggy the next day. And especially if there was not, enough fats in that meal, and typically there's not. So as I honed this process over time, I realized that, if I could have a green meal for dinner with a lot of fat, then I would be very clear the next day. And I never worried about, at some point I got over that fear. I think we're so fear-based, fear of running out of protein, fear of running out of carbohydrates. And it's really BS, because it's easy to get fuel, especially for a sprint sport like motorcycle racing. It's tougher in bicycle racing, but it's not like you can just, step up and reload the machine with this huge amount of fuel. So, so for motorcycle racing in particular, I would say, keep fueling during the day with, a decent breakfast. And my breakfast of choice is kind of a green-based smoothie that I'll put some low sugar granola on top. And so it's essentially very little fruit. It's usually like avocado. I'll do some like blueberries. So there's some fruit there. I like blueberries a lot, but and raspberries and things like that. Berries are awesome, but I don't do like the bananas and the oranges and all that stuff. I do like an avocado and greens and maybe like a plant-based yogurt, and then blend that up with some almonds, and that'll be my base. And put some low sugar granola on top, hopefully homemade, and that'll kind of bring you through the day pretty far, in the sense that, of course you can fuel along the way with some, well, whatever you're eating that day, but it could be a good bread or a good energy bar, whatever. But the important part is that when you get towards the end of the day, don't carb load, because that's sort of been, at least for my body, it's been a week, or it's led me down the wrong path. Rather have a nice, hopefully dense salad with kale and your power greens, and then if you're meat eater, you can have that. If you're plant-based eater, you can have your vegetables, maybe a potato or a sweet potato or something, and that should be the basis of your dinner, rather than thinking, and a lot of fats. Here's the thing, it's like when you're doing a salad, like take your whether it's your avocado oil or MCT or oil or olive oil, and just flood the thing with oil, and that's going to be more fuel than you'll ever need for the next day.
Yeah, it's a lot of calories. Did you ever try cordyceps mushrooms for concentration?
Yeah, and they're really great. I had good success with them on the bicycle. For it seemed like, especially at altitude, it helped me. I think altitude has never been a place where I've been really comfortable, and I've noticed that cordyceps have helped me. And also, they're the beetroot extract, because of the nitrate and help of oxygen uptake. So yeah, I think there are definitely some tricks to that. I didn't notice them as much on the motorcycle, but on the bicycle, I'm sure that I had effects. So I would say if you're struggling on the motorcycle for energy, probably take a motorcycle class. I'll give a shout out to Fast Track Riders. They have a lot of classes, but there's a lot of great classes all over the US. And on the motorcycle, you can, I laugh, think about watching, some pretty out of shape riders like Anthony Gobert be able to get the job done with probably very little energy. So if you're really exhausted after riding the motorcycle, take some classes and find a more effective way or more efficient way to let the motorcycle work for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great hour riders, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, that's an endurance challenge.
Yeah.
But as always, bigger endurance challenge for the brain. And how are you going to get the best results with that? You're going to have those fats to fuel brain.
do you ever take IV vitamin?
No,
IV vitamins? You never took them?
no.
Okay, all right. We'll talk later.
Okay, cool.
They helped you, the bill, right? Get over the flu.
They did. When I went through the COVID, I think as soon as we suspected we had it, we just went and got like a cocktail of vitamins. And because it's straight in the blood, it doesn't have to permeate, from the stomach into the blood, that you don't lose as many. So you get a really nice vitamin load. And, didn't feel great that weekend, but I didn't get seriously sick either. So I think it did help and shorten the recovery time.
Well, I have a funny story about that. So this was back in 2009, and I'd never done a triathlon of any sort before. And so we signed up for the one here in Vegas, which at the time was the hardest one in the world. And had a pretty good go on the thing, ended up finishing 5th overall. And maybe it's just, pure ignorance because I'd never done the event, but I would have finished a little bit better, but I'd taken too many electrolytes. Well, actually, I had made the mistake of kind of eating too much the day before and ended up pissing out all my really all my water. And so I struggled on the bike and then ended up taking too many electrolytes and ended up in the toilet a bunch of times on the run. I had to run, which was like the American Pie episode of like, running to the bathroom. But it still went pretty well. And then after the race, some friends there, and I was chatting with them, and then they left, and somebody just like grabbed my shoulders and guided me into the medical tent. Thank God, right?
Too much magnesium,
right. I mean, I think I was going off, like I was bonking after the end of like the high of the event, and it was a long event because it's a hard Ironman, and so so I get in the medical tent, get on a couple of IVs, and they asked if I wanted some like drugs mixed in there. I'm like, yeah, like I'm pretty uncomfortable. Let's do this. So
give me the good stuff.
My best friend Dustin was also doing the event. I'd been in the medical tent for a while and finally left, and at perfect timing, Dustin came across the finish line. And so he had his own bout, and this was funny because he's a tough guy. He had a hernia while we were training for this thing. I had broken about 6 or 7 bones on a bicycle about a month before. So we were both kind of a mess going into this race. He was like, he ended up having to push his guts in the entire time through the run because they were leaking out of his stomach. So he was pretty uncomfortable at the finish. By this point, I was like high as a kite, thought I could drive home and all that, and they're like, "You're not driving." So we and this is the point of the IV and how powerful they can be. We got up the next day, and I was sort of like bouncing off the walls, like eyeballs white and perfect, and felt really good, other than the legs were pretty sore. And Dustin, like, I wanted to get out of the house and get some food, kind of get going. There was some award ceremony to go to, and Dustin, I remember like finally just knocking on his door and like, "You got to get up." And seeing these like bloodshot eyes, this bloated face, it just, from the cortisol, it's so uncomfortable. I mean, he looked sick, and I looked perfect, but it was just because I had that IV, right? So I was hydrated, and then I also slept really well. He hadn't slept a wink because I was drugged up. Of course I slept well. So the IVs, I agree, they can be super powerful medicine.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we maybe go a little bit to motorcycles? I don't know.
I think that's a good idea.
How are we doing on time?
We get another 10-15 minutes to stick to the hour. Let's see if we can do that this time around.
Oh my God, there's no way. Oh, geez. We did it again. So we try every podcast, we try not to go over an hour. It always ends up 2 hours, right? And I know you have to go because you have to be tomorrow, and you said in San Francisco.
Yeah, my dad and I are building some motorcycles. I got a bunch of stuff to do here, and I have a couple of broken ribs right now. So unloading is going to be a little slower than normal, but that's all right.
So just for everyone, he said I have a couple broken ribs. So the reason why we're sitting in the same room is because I picked him up, and he said, yeah, I'm going to walk 2.5 miles this morning, just to get the blood flowing. And then he calls me and he goes, yeah, I kind of woke up a little later. I'm on the road, but don't worry. And by the way, I got some broken ribs. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is what you do when you have broken ribs. You walk 2.5 miles just because.
What else can you do, right? You gotta move. That's another big part of the health thing, is you got to keep it moving. This is great French study. It's like, if you get on the ground, depending on how many points you need to touch the ground to pick yourself up, predicts the age you'll die at.
Oh, really?
And it's really accurate, because like if you're not fit, you're gonna die early. It sucks. But I mean, like in general, right?
But you're gonna die happy.
I don't know. It depends on your happiness. I like suffering, so
I like pizza. Yeah, I got some broken ribs too. The gift of jiu-jitsu, they both stick out.
Oh yeah.
So
that just means you can bring in more air into your lungs.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Yeah, just to try to sleep on your stomach.
Once again, a favor, because stomach sleepers have bad poor posture.
Yeah, that's right. You're supposed to either sleep on your back or on your right side, right?
Yeah, and ideally on your back.
Yeah. All right. We got some motorcycle questions. We really need to do some motorcycling here, because everybody that tunes in, that's what you guys want to hear, right?
Yeah, well, they want to hear once you lose edge grip, how do you recover? So I think we've covered that very well.
I was giving Gal a hard time because he had told me that he had basically learned to road race at Willow Springs, and I was like, "How you got a short straw on that one?"
On an R1.
Yeah, on R1, about as short as mine, because I learned to road race on a Harley, and neither of them are really good places to learn how to road race.
Right.
So where would you learn how to road race?
Probably on a 600 or smaller machine, and on a track that has a lot of turns. With in Southern California, that might be like a Buttonwillow or Fontana or Thunderhill in Northern California, Sonoma, any Laguna Seca, but not a track where you just keep throttle on. Because the problem when you're keeping the throttle on, I even struggle with this at Chuckwalla. It's you never learn to actually turn the motorcycle, and the most important part of motorcycle racing is the rider that gets the bike turned the quickest is the one that wins the race, because they have the longest straightaways. So it is a big disadvantage to be a Willow Springs rider, and I think that's why we saw so many great Willow Springs specialists not be able to really deliver on a national level, because they just weren't able to pick up the skills they needed on that racetrack.
Okay, so you just had the streets. You just moved to the streets. So you do one day at the streets, one day.
That works.
Yeah, that's why California Superbike School, they always ran at the streets.
Cool, and it makes sense. Yeah, if you can master both those tracks, you're in pretty good shape.
Okay, good. So I have a question for you about motorcycles. It's about motorcycles. You tested the MV Agusta F3 675 back in 2012, so for Cycle World magazine. So this is just for Nabil. Was this the best bike you've ever tested? And if it wasn't, was it?
Wait a minute. What kind of question is that? It's a street bike.
Is this the best bike ever made? Ever?
oh yes. I'm sorry. I totally failed on that question. Yeah, absolutely. That is the best bike ever made. That's the pinnacle of any motorcycle I've ever ridden. Sorry, Nabil, that's not true. But it was a great motorcycle. And here's the funny thing about this. When you go to test a motorcycle, the manufacturers, especially the European manufacturers, they're so cagey, and they they polish these bikes. These are really not street bikes in the sense that, like, I think they even might have souped up engines. I'm not sure, but they definitely tune the suspension and retune the suspension and make the bike dialed for that racetrack.
They're little snaky pasta eaters, aren't
Yeah,
they? They do
yeah.
it with every bike.
Right. And I remember going to Jerez, maybe you know, a little later on and doing this BMW HP4 intro. And that bike was so dialed. I mean, it was so dialed. It worked about as well as a super bike, you know, like a proper super bike. And I, you know, and I just was laughing because, you know, Troy Corser and these, you know, these really fast riders were there setting up the bikes, and world champions setting up the bikes. And I was like, man, this isn't really a good indicator of what this bike is capable of. But that being said, the bikes were killer, and that MV was awesome. I really had a good time. Tested it at Power Car, which I hadn't ridden there at that track since 99, doing a 24-hour endurance race, and part of one of the 24-hour endurance world championship races, and ended up burning an RC45 down to the ground in the turn at the end of the back straight, which is a pretty fast turn. But that was just in qualifying. The team actually drove to Germany overnight, got another RC45, and somehow got the bike working for the next day. And we would have won that race, but we had another crash during the race. But that was a teammate, not my fault.
Wow.
So there you go. RC45 is, that bike is so beautiful.
Yeah, it was a kind of an electric bike before its time, because the motor was just so seamless. And I remember in that 24-hour race, we had you know, we were competitive, but we weren't the quickest bike out there. And so I think I started third, and we did the Le Mans style start. And at that point, I'd ridden with some of the competitors on like Suzuki's and Kawasai's and whatnot. And our bikes were they were running pretty close in speed. And so I, you know, jumped on the bike and probably got like a third or fourth place start, about where I started. And we got to the back straight, and I ripped the paint off everything on the way by. I mean, I probably went into the turn at the end of the back straight with like a 10 bike length lead. And I was like, oh shit, like we got a good bike. And what I realized is that they all had like qualifying motors and stuff in their bike, but the race motors couldn't put out that amount of power.
Oh.
But that RC45 was so fast.
So what was your
Alright.
favorite race? Obviously, I guess the one you won.
Yeah, that is a good one. Oh man. No, you know, I had this great race at Peoria with Scott Parker, and unfortunately Chris Card was a little quicker, and so he had gotten away from us, but not by much. We were doing a pretty good job. And I remember thinking, like, I think I was 16 years old, and I was like, man, I'm like battling with one of the best there ever was, you know. And we had this great race going back and forth, and I think for me it was just like pure shock of like, I don't belong here, but I'm here, and racing with the legend of the sport. And
Now, you understand you're one of the best that ever was, right?
not
Speaking of
I
legend.
appreciate that. I don't anyway, that's sweet. But here, you know, I'm like kid, right? And you know, driving a van back to, you know, this race, and now I'm racing against, you know, a person that I've been watching since I was, you know, maybe 8 years old, going to, you know, these professional races, you know, as a spectator, and you know, Sacramento Mile, San Jose Mile, and whatnot. And so to you know, not be too far down the road, and racing with him, I think that was one of my greatest races. And it also ended up in a you know, a failure, because my exhaust pipe ended up breaking off the motorcycle. Now the Bostroms aren't great mechanics, right? And so we always had shit falling off the bikes. And in this case, it was the exhaust pipe, better than the front forks. So I got black flag like really close to the end. And it was such a heartbreaker, because it's a Grand National race, and you know, I was going to finish second or third, which would have been really cool to be on the podium. And standing on the podium with Scott Parker and Chris Carr would have been dope, but it didn't work out. And that was probably one of my most memorable races.
So hold on, did you say losing the forks? Did I ever
Yeah. I remember, so this was back a few years sooner, maybe 93. We had went out to Sturgis to do some flat tracks out there, and they wouldn't let me start the race because I didn't have an axle. I didn't have a nut on the axle, and then so I missed the start of the
you kind of
race.
need that,
Right. And so I get back and my dad's like, it's got pinch bolts, it's fine. And so I didn't actually lose the forks. I never lost the forks, thank goodness. But my dad has lived through all that stuff, like exploding wheels at Ascot and like tumbling, and because the old bikes were of course pretty gnarly. But I never actually lost any forks. So.
Okay.
I was close actually to that accident. I bought an old Triumph from a friend and I rode it to a mechanic in the valley. And when I get there, he goes over the bike and so on. He's like, you know that you have no bolts on your pinch forks in at the bottom. He's like, this is just gravity you together.
It's British bikes. You gotta tighten the bolts every time you ride it.
Yeah, I was testing up when we were doing that Cafe Racer show, and these kids in New York, they were kind of like import car builders, the sort of like Fast and Furious kind of cars, and they built a motorcycle. And this old Honda was sick. It looked so cool, but they didn't put a spacer between the wheel bearings and the front axle, and the front wheel, and I probably rode the thing a mile. And the first time I got going, and of course I was wearing like jeans and basically very little protective gear. I had a leather jacket on, open face helmet. The wheel bearings fell in and the front wheel just locked up, and I just crashed this thing going like 65 miles an hour in jeans. That sucked. So that's the closest I've ever had to forks falling off.
That must have hurt.
All right, we got 8 minutes. We got 8 minutes. I don't think we're going to go through all those questions in 8 minutes.
Let's do what we can.
Okay. All right. Talk a little about fast track.
There's always a little fuzz, right?
You can come back. We live right next to each other. So
yeah.
You can come back. Talk a little bit about fast tracks, how you got involved. How do you know Ahmad?
Yeah. Fast track is, it's just a cool environment, right? Like great people. And that's what really drew me there. It happened from a phone call from Steve Rapp. He got called to fly on a day that he was supposed to do the academy. And I'd known Ahmad from like 20 years ago, but fallen out of touch. And didn't even know that he had taken over fast track. But I was like, cool, Steve, like I got your back. Like that's what we do. And so went out and ended up having a really fun time, but mostly just a great time connecting with all the people out at Fast Track, from the participants to the staff, and so that sort of sent the hook in me, and I was like, man, we can really make a difference, because riding around, it really felt like most people just wanted to try harder to go faster, and that's such flawed logic. But there is a point where that can work, but it's like that last couple percent. So I kind of over several weekends, because we were doing the academy, and it was a 3-month long sort of school and competition and all of this cool stuff. And I was like, hey, this is cool. No one's doing this with track days. Come on, you're rad. And of course Nabil's there, and so we were kind of talking about like, what can we do to really help the riders grow? And I think we've seen that when I go to the fast track events. When I think back from like, that was about 2015 to going there now, I just see so many better examples. And then it's shown on the time charts too, because there's so many riders that have advanced from the intermediate level to the expert level, or the beginner level to the intermediate level, and so the amount of riders riding in the faster groups is like the biggest chunk of riders there, where that wasn't the case in the past. So I think we've moved the needle, and I like to think that it's because there's better examples to follow now, because some people are actually, rather than trying harder, they're actually riding smarter, and so that's been a real gift. And whether it's true or not, I like to think that we made a difference.
You subscribe to slow is smooth and smooth is faster.
You got to know what you're asking, and most people really don't know. They don't know what they're asking, right? And so then they end up, crashing the bike, and they think that's a speed limit. And I always make this point, which is, if you're riding right and you're trail braking and creating grip, you can create grip by, of course, increasing the size of the contact patch on the tire and loading and getting the chassis geometry correct. Then, in a rider going 60 miles an hour can crash because they're 1% throttle leaning in, they have no contact patch, they have no chassis geometry working for them. They crash going 60, but another rider can be going 80 miles an hour and be totally comfortable. So the rider that crashes, what happens when you crash? Your confidence
Goes down,
falls,
yeah.
right? What happens when you don't crash? Your confidence grows. So if you can teach the rider to feel the grip and understand how you make grip and how you give away grip, and there's opportunities all the time to make grip or give away grip, and there's times when you want to give away grip. Most of the time you want to make grip, right? And then once you get that feel while you're making grip, it's like you can walk on water, and that's what we see on television. I mean, these riders are like walking on water.
Yeah,
and that's a rad feeling.
Yeah. So that's what
All
we
right.
telling people, right? Get some coaching. Don't buy that $3,000 exhaust, but put it in a couple of coaching sessions, and you'll enjoy your bike so much more. Are you still coaching now that you live up north, or what's the?
I just sporadically kind of flying in and doing a little bit here and there, but I'll get more into it with time. Life sort of has its ebbs and flows. But I think the fabric is set, and I think that you go out to a track day at Fast Track, for example, and you're going to see a lot of people riding correctly, and that's we're only as good as people who ride around. So I think it's starting to become part of the fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the coaching thing, Nabil, you nailed it, which is, don't waste your money on. Of course, a bike needs suspension, right? Like it needs to be set up, but you can ride fast on a stock bike these days. You couldn't do that on older, 2007 machine, but nowadays you can ride fast on a stock bike. You just need to have the suspension close, and you need to have decent tires, but that's really it. Everything else is, decent tires, suspension within the ballpark, and then you don't need to do anything else.
Yeah,
right?
some good brake pads.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, probably steel lines.
Yeah.
I'm oversimplifying this, but the point is you can go fast on a stock motorcycle. You can do fast lap times on a stock motorcycle if you know what you're doing, and you can't. You could give, of course, the opposite, right? A rider that doesn't know what they're doing, the best bike in the world, and they can't hit their ass with both hands.
Yep. So who's your favorite to win in MotoGP? Or I should say, let's ask the question two ways. Who's your favorite to win, but also whose riding style do you like most and why?
To answer quickly, Nabil, I'm always one for the underdog, and it's cool to see the riders on a team that is not established come forward, because that's sort of like typically they're overriding the bike, and those are the riders I'm rooting for. I don't know the exact lineup for the season, but I'll be tuned in once it comes. So I don't really have a great answer, but I'm looking forward to getting the energy start of the season again.
Yeah, sounds exciting. Ducati just beat this speed record with Zarco. I think the fastest speed trap ever, 335 kilometers an hour, 340. They're using their lowering device now in the turns, not just at the start. And Suzuki's complaining. By the way, Suzuki's complaining, Gal, because apparently they can't go fast.
Look, I ride a Suzuki, but I'm not a Suzuki guy, right? I'll get whatever.
Come on, look at the color of your shirt. Clearly,
That's a Lululemon color. That is Lululemon. This is Lululemon.
Yeah, his girlfriend picked that up for him.
Oh, okay. All right. That's where we're going. Okay, I was not aware. All right, really, let's put a pin on it, right? And come back maybe with part 2 once you have more time,
Yeah.
once you settle in town.
Yeah, we can do that.
And I'll show you all the good spots for vegan food.
Show me the good lines around the racetrack.
The good lines,
Thanks.
yeah.
I appreciate that.
The good lines around the strip.
Let's knock off. We only got a couple more questions here, so if we want to.
All right, I'm down. All right, you can read them.
No, you.
I should read them. Okay. You piloted a ZX7RR for a long time and single-handedly boosted sales for the model. Do you think it's time for them to make a comeback on the new 700 class, 750 class, whatever they call it now, V2 class, Super Sport class?
I think yes, in the sense that it's the most rideable platform. I think a 1000cc motorcycle is just too much for pretty much almost any street riding scenario. I would say not for most, but for almost all street riding scenarios. It's just more motorcycle than you need. And the 750 is just a really forgiving platform. So maybe that's a little bit me being romantic about the times I've had on the 750. But I do feel like the racing was really good then too. And the flip side of that is with all the electronic controls that we have in the bikes nowadays, like the thousands almost ride like 750s or even 600s, and so maybe it's not that big of a deal. I mean, if you get them upright, they're really fun and they rip, and but there's not too many places on the street where you can actually use that power. So I think so, but I don't think we're going to see that happen. I think that we're going to continue to see, the kind of 600, 1000cc thing. And I think the market's going to drive that decision. So that's the way it's going. I think that's the way it's going to stay.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the reason why everything's changing is because those 600s are not selling like they should be selling.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
So I think everybody's trying whatever they're trying to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just don't think there's enough sales to justify an intermediate class, and Nabil's got a really cute new puppy. So
Nabil, shows the puppy.
The puppy's in the kitchen trying to beg for some food, so I'm gonna mute.
We hear him.
All right.
Next question is, every time I see you on camera, you seem happy and smiling. It's just motorcycle that makes you smile, or you're just high on life?
Yeah, I think high in life. I like to think that. The motorcycle, I mean, gosh, what could I be too disappointed about? My life's been amazing. I have this like amazing family, and my brother and I's relationship is so powerful. And so yeah, I think there's just there's no reason to be unhappy, and we can all make reasons to be unhappy. But if you're in that space, you need to go outside, get some sunshine, breathe some fresh air, and also like push yourself, right? And I think that unfortunately we see whether it's people famous actors or other people kind of ending their lives prematurely. They're just not taking on a new challenge and not finding something to get pumped about, and you got to mix it up, right? Like, I mean, it's not like motorcycles have carried me through life and been my one passion. I have all these other outdoor passions. I'm an outdoor person, but that's not the right recipe for the next person. It's just the right recipe for that makes me smile.
Yeah, and then health and wellness.
Yeah,
it's I mean, the way you eat has a lot to do with it, right?
For sure.
Gut bacteria really affects your brain.
Yeah, more than we know.
Yeah.
And it's wild that you can sever the connection from the gut to the brain, and yet they still communicate. And it's amazing that over 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So that also goes for mood enhancement. And if your gut flora is jacked up, then your mood's gonna follow that. So yeah, you can make major influence in your mood with your diet. And unfortunately, the reason that we have so many people on prescriptions, whether it's like the serotonin, different antidepressants, is because their gut flora is just wrong.
Yeah. I mean, someone said we're just a big tube, right?
I like that.
That's, yeah.
I've not heard that, but
that
I like
that has on the inside and has all those bacteria.
Mhm.
That's all we are, right?
Yeah. I mean, the human, or the biome is becoming more and more recognized as an important part of our health. But then there's also the virome, which is really important. And for every human cell that we have 100x bacteria cells in our body, and for every bacteria cell, I think we have 10x virus cells. So or virus in our body, I shouldn't say cells. And that's another huge part of our health. We can't live without virus. We can't live without bacteria. And it's so important that we understand that and go, okay, these are factors responsible for my health, and I need to feed the body in a healthy way
and build the ecosystem so that the good viruses and the good bacteria flourishes.
Yeah, exactly. It is symbiotic.
Next question. The Boss Brothers Sturgis ride. Tell us about that. Sturgis, we're not, isn't Sturgis Harleys? And but your background is Harleys.
Yeah, it is. And maybe that's what tied us in. And we went to Sturgis as kids and raced. And that was a really funny thing to be exposed to, right? Like you're 13 years old and you're seeing these like fat asses hanging out at chaps, and you're like, that's just wrong on every level, right? But it was the city really wanted to kind of change the demographic, and we wanted to help. So we kind of added a sport bike end to the Sturgis Rally. It wasn't very sticky, but we did have some good times there, and like Ricky Carmichael and a bunch of the dirt bike crowd came up, Mickey Diamond. There were some supermoto races, so it was cool. It did add a lot to the show, but ultimately, that is just like your pure Midwest, like we ride cruisers, and so yeah, it was challenging. Had its challenges.
You didn't come back on a Harley?
No, not on a Harley.
Are you competitive with your brother?
Yeah, but not as competitive as Ben is with me, in the sense that like I've always been the type of rider that I like to race the track and have like the joy of like riding and racing. And I can remember being a kid and saying like, let's go ride this track, and be like, why? And I, like, just for the joy of like riding. Is like, it's not why I ride. Like, I ride to beat you. And I, it's like he would be furious once. And that was like when there was he was older, and so he was quicker. But once we got kind of close in speed, the worst thing you could ever do was pull out of if we were like in a fight on the racetrack, we'd be on our dirt bikes and have all these different configurations, and if you were leading and pulled off the track, you've never seen Ben so angry before. Like furious. And it was because you didn't give him the opportunity to win, right? And that was his sole reason to be on the racetrack. And I think we're polar opposites on that, because I always kind of liked riding the bikes, and it's trying at times, right? Because you don't have the bike you want And so it can wear on your nerves and patience and all that. But for Ben, it was like, I'm out there to beat everyone, and it's killer. So yeah, he's hyper competitive. And me, I think I'm competitive.
Okay. I think it kind of rubbed off on you when you were racing other people, right? And you were like, yeah, I'm not losing to this guy. And
Oh,
you
sure.
learned a lot from him.
Yeah, no, you want to beat everyone, and but not. I've never had that hyper competitive drive that he has, and some of the other competitors I raced against.
Okay, let's see. Next question. Okay, I'm not going to ask this one, but the last one is, what is your favorite ice cream? And I imagine it's something with coconut, right? And
it
without any sugar, and
it probably should be. I love plant-based ice creams, but I'm not like ultimately that strict, and so there's a place in Bend, Oregon called Bonta, and their ice cream is killer. But the best ice cream in the world is certainly in Italy, probably, the gelato stands that are just everywhere. And pistachio is my favorite, but it's got to be like really proper pistachio. And then that's the one. Pistachio gelato.
Pistachio gelato in Italy.
Yeah. And that's cream based, and it's, not perfect.
So, you can try the Venetian right here. Right down the street, the Venetian, they have a little court, and they have a little gelato cart in there that has pistachio.
Nice. Okay.
So
cool.
there you go.
We'll check it out. Thanks for the tips, Gal.
It's not Italy, but it's kind of close.
Well, cool, crew. Should we wrap it up? Bill, you good?
I'm
Solid?
good. Thank you. Thank you for making the time. Much appreciated. And I love we did. This is the first one we do in person. So I love that, because it's a lot more fun to actually be with the person, even if I'm seeing you from the other side of the screen.
We did it with Carrie.
Yes,
Oh, he's calling you out. He's calling you out.
that's
You gonna
right.
take that shit?
I'm not calling you out.
It was our first one. I forgot about it.
Okay, so this has been another episode of Edge Grip Podcast with Nabil Kabani and our special guest, Eric Bostrom.
Cool. It's been a pleasure, team. Look forward to seeing you guys on the track, and yeah, we'll take it to the track from here.
All right, sounds good. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye.
Thanks, Eric. Bye.